Okay.
Alright, Ben, you can take a seat.
I'm waiting for Dylan to get back.
Oh, okay. And Ben, if you could do me a favor.
Yeah.
If you could press record and then press it again. Cool. Yes, indeed. Hooray for Hollywood. My name is Daniel, and this is As the Real Turns, your place for all things movies and television, and I am so happy to be back. And we're going to kick it off, of course, with our usual introduction form of thingamajiggy. Of course, I'm talking about our entertainment update. Yes, it is now time for another entertainment update where I give you a little thing about one of the upcoming films or television shows in the entertainment world. Two that really actually surprised me. One is that we are having the return of a favorite animal doctor. Yes, we are getting the return of Dr. Dolittle. This is the third incarnation of him. If you can remember all the way back, there was the first incarnation with Rex Harrison. And then they made a small race change with Eddie Murphy, and he did 2 movies, I believe. And he's kind of like the more popular one that everybody knows. And now they're going back and they're having Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr. play him. So I have no idea what they're going to do with it, but hey, we're going to see what happens there. And then also, I just found this out. We're actually getting a brand new movie that is really kind of odd, actually. It's a movie that is starring James Dean. Yes, for some reason they're going to bring him back from the dead through CGI, and he's going to be a co-star in an upcoming film. Why, you ask? I don't know. Personally, I think it's kind of weird and ridiculous, but who knows? If you're a James Dean fan and fan of his 3 movies out there, then this might be the thing for you. But there's some updates for you in the entertainment world, and my name is Daniel Saletti, and this has been Entertainment Update. Yes, okay, so now let's get back to our normal program here. Welcome to November, everybody, and it has been, it was quite a scary month we had in October. We had a whole bunch of fun themes there regarding all different types of Halloween-themed things and creepy-themed things. But we're going to take a break now from any themed things for November. Of course, when I talk about November, we all know it's Christmas time, right? Absolutely not. No, it is Thanksgiving time. I want to keep Christmas in December. I want to make that perfectly clear. So if Mother Nature can hold off that snow, that'd be fantastic. But yes, so it's November, so that means Thanksgiving things, and we're actually going to be talking about something that is loosely connected to Thanksgiving, believe it or not. I'll explain why later on, but today we're going to be talking about a show that's all about movies. Yes, and when I say that, it actually spanned 12 seasons worth of watching movies. And so they must have been doing something right with this. Today we're going to be talking about a show I like to call Mystery Science Theater 3000. So yes, Mystery Science Theater 3000, a show that started in the late 80s and the early 90s. Actually, I believe it, I take that back, late 80s and then continued through the 90s. And then it got a reboot recently on Netflix a couple of years ago. Collectively though, if you add all the seasons up, this show puts it above such shows such as Cheers and Frasier and MASH, because it didn't go 9, 10, 11 seasons. This thing went 12 seasons, which makes it in the same category as The Big Bang Theory. So they must have been doing something right. And so, like I said, they did 12 seasons, and they even made a motion picture. So and they did it with the simplest of things. But of course, I can never talk about this alone. So that is why I have some great guys to talk this about with. Across from me, we have a guy, you know him, you love him. He has been in all these shows. He is Mr. Dylan Tavetian. How are you, Dylan?
Good. How are you, Daniel?
Doing
what a beautiful day.
Oh, gorgeous out there, isn't it? And then next to him, we have a guy who, well, he missed last week's show.
I'm sorry, Dad.
But
that was your fault.
But we forgive him. We forgive him. It's, of course, Ben. Why are you dancing in a field?
I've actually never heard that one before.
Never heard that one before, huh?
Nice to see you, Dad. Good to be here.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, his last name's Field, so we just play with him a lot. So, guys, we're here talking about Mystery Science Theater, so we're going to kick it off. The first thing I want to mention real quick is that you are going to. One of the big parts about the TV show was its theme song. And you're going to get really sick of this theme song because most of the time, whenever they had a new season, they brought out a new theme song. But we're not gonna play it quite yet. We're gonna talk about the very first incarnation of it, which was actually not a nationwide thing. This was a localized television show. It was a show out of Minnesota and created by a guy named Joel Hodgkin. And he decided to make a show based around this guy trapped in space, and all he's sent there to do is to watch these terrible movies. And he decides he can't do it alone, so he makes these robots with some spare parts from the space station he's sent up to. And they just watch these movies and they make commentary on them. It's a simple premise. And most of the time, whenever you see these localized versions of the show, it's usually called Season 0. So even if you take that into effect, that's 13 seasons, which is amazing, I think. And once people thought, oh, this could actually work on a nationwide scale, they eventually got picked up by a channel called Comedy Central, and made their first 5 seasons on Comedy Central, and this is the theme that you would hear most of the time. If it would play, that's the thing. So you can already tell right from the get-go that this is kind of ridiculous here. The theme song goes on to say that we send them cheesy movies, the worst we can find, and we're going to monitor his mind by watching these movies, basically. Ben, we'll go to you first.
Right.
Just from the premise that you've heard from this,
yeah.
have you ever seen one episode of this show, at least an episode? And even if you haven't, what do you think of the premise?
I have not seen them.
Look, can we hear you now, Ben? That's the question.
Yeah.
There we go.
I have not actually seen an episode of this show, but from the premise that you told me and what you've told me in the past, it sounds very interesting. And I've never heard of a show like this, which could be groundbreaking. It could be just breaking.
It was a little bit of both, I think, if you ask me. But that's the thing. It was so simple. You can tell in the production value of this show, they didn't really hide anything. You can see the strings like lifting up a rocket into space, and these robots that Joel makes are basically a gumball machine and another robot made bowling pin for a mouth and lacrosse net for a head. Dylan, how about you?
I've seen a few episodes of the show. It is very funny. It's ridiculous, but I just wish they'd get a little more explicit.
Well,
in jokes.
That's the thing. You know, we're gonna try and find you some clips that you can listen to today. But that's the thing, because they were on a cable channel, they could get away with a little bit more than you could on a broadcast channel. And yes, there are some innuendo jokes on there, and yes, there are some raunchy
That's
jokes.
That's not enough.
Well,
Before we rated, let's go.
well, that
Comedy Central.
that they wouldn't go too far, but you know, they would actually do a little bit of the not so nice jokes, and which you know, they wouldn't do it all the time, but there were a few jokes in there, because especially, you know, if they're watching something ridiculous on the screen, then you say, yeah, we can make that funnier. The one kind of claim to fame that, you know, you see actually a lot in other incarnations of, doesn't matter, whatever it might be, is the famous door sequence of this series. Is that the space station they're on, the satellite? It's called the Satellite of Love, and it basically looks like a giant dog bone in space. And the idea is that Joel and the robots are on one end of the station, in like their kind of like bridge, you can almost call it, and the theater that they watch the movies in is on the other side. And so they have to go down this corridor to watch the movies. And when the camera would go down this corridor, it was like going down like a miniature hallway, because again, the production value, very simple here. So let's just put a camera through like a 1-inch size hallway and pretend like we're walking through the hallway here. And the doors would look all different and would look silly and stuff like that. And then that became kind of, you know, the thing that everybody knows about this series is the door sequence. And you can find still people making their own versions of it on YouTube, which is kind of cool. So Joel would continue making these watching these god awful movies for 5 years, and 6 if you count season 0, and they would occasionally do the silly skit in between watching the movie. They would sometimes reference something to the movie itself. They would sometimes do something else. They would sometimes interact with those bosses that the theme song mentioned in like an invention exchange. So really, really silly stuff. Actually, though, there was one thing that people were concerned about, is like, how long can this guy go up for it? And so right in the middle of the 5th season, Joel said goodbye. He actually crashed down on Earth, and he escaped the satellite. Knowing the show had to continue, they actually sent another guy up into space, and this time they went with a guy named Mike. And I will let the theme song explain how Mike got roped into this thing.
Dr. Forrester and TV's Frank were hatching an evil scheme. They hired a temp by the name of Mike, just a regular Joe they didn't like. Their experiment needed a good test case, so they cocked him on the noggin and they shot him into space.
So, we got some laughs here. I like that. I like the laughs here. And so this started the huge debate during this show. Like, are you Team Joel or are you Team Mike? And they both had very different styles. Joel had this very kind of like laid back, kind of eyes sagging type of a personality, and Mike was kind of more energetic. He was willing to do things, and all for all the gimmicky things the robots put him through. This was also a change in the series when they moved from Comedy Central to the Sci-Fi Channel, which in a sense makes sense because this is kind of science fiction-y type of a show. Dylan, just from everything that you've heard so far, do you think that making a change of channels kind of would put a damper on the show, or do you think it's more a Comedy Central show?
Well, it didn't seem to put a damper on the show. I mean, it continued. This is what, is it season 5 or season 6?
Something
They
like that.
just tried it again, and I mean, you have to have a new personality. I mean, the jokes will get old, so you have to have a new guy come in. So I don't think there's an issue there. And it's just a change of the channel.
Right. And Ben, what do you think?
It's not like it was on Animal Planet or
True.
Discovery or
True.
something.
Changing channels, I know, can be quite difficult for some TV shows.
A lot of shows have done it, yeah.
Yeah, but from
This one seemed fine.
Go ahead.
But from the sound of it, when you guys talked about it, seemed to have pulled it off very well. And I mean, Mike seems like a cool guy.
Yeah, he seems like
Granted, I've only seen a few episodes in passing.
I hope.
I mean, I liked them, but
I hope this is somewhat convincing you.
I might be Team Mike.
You might be Team Mike. I gotta be honest, I'm a little on that side too. I think we're all in agreement here, sort of. And I mean, you know, you guys knew a lot about the slasher, so I'm kind of just throwing stuff at you and saying like, hey, let's do this. you know this one or you know that one? How about that? It's not like getting back at you guys or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter which channel you're on. I think they both work. But like I said, you know, with you guys knowing a lot about the slashers and me not knowing so much, one of the reasons I love this show so much is that it kind of reflects on my movie making. Plug Daniel TVS on YouTube. And Dylan's giving me a nice good glare there.
With his 137 paid subscribers.
They're not paid. The one thing is that and the reason I compare it with me is that everybody on this show almost has like 5 different jobs, because Joel not only was the star for 5 seasons, but he also was the creator of the show. And then the two robots are actually puppets, and one guy does one of the robots and the other guy does one, and then they both actually end up being those 2 bosses that hate Joel in the first theme song. And then Mike himself would occasionally come in and do little cameo spots. Then he got the main role, and again the bosses changed, and they were doing the puppets of the robots, and they would do other cameo roles, like if they met an alien in space or something like that. And you know, we do a lot of stuff like that. I mean, how many roles have I put the 2 of you through since I met you? Yeah. So it's nice to have a kind of a similarity between the 2. But yeah, that's the thing I like about it. So we're gonna take a quick break with a PSA here, and we're gonna bring us out with the end theme of the show that they used. That can either be interpreted as the Mystery Science Theater love theme or Mighty Science Theater. So we'll be right back on As the Reel Turns.
I've seen Monos, Squirm. I see more riff tracks than MST3K.
What's that?
I've seen more riff tracks. What other ones? I've probably seen like 29.
Honorary Forest Ranger Betty White here, lending a hand to my dear friend Smokey Bear, because for 75 years he's only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
but there's a lot more to say. Like, if you park your car on tall, dry grass, the hot exhaust pipe can start a wildfire. So be careful out
What do you
there.
guys think?
Go
You
to
think so, Mom?
smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the
Okay, here we go.
Let us all now
This is
sing
funny.
our praises to the Lord today. Although you may not share our belief system, which is perfectly okay.
Maybe you worship an abstract being that is kind of vague. Or Or maybe you just worship a guy whose name is Greg.
Perhaps your religion doesn't include a time called Lent, but whatever your religion is, we support you 100%.
All right, we are back on As the Real Turns. We're talking about the movie television show today, Mystery Science Theater 3000, a personal favorite of mine. And, you know, like I said, I'm one of those guys who's a nitpicker when it comes to keeping Christmas in December. But that is one of their classic in-between moments of watching the movies, where they sang a song called Merry Christmas, If That's Okay.
So you failed. You did not keep Christmas in December.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
went against your own, against your own move there, Dan.
Yeah, the bug's actually pretty bad this year. But
Merry Christmas.
oh, thanks so much. But yeah, so it's a really funny song. You can actually find it on iTunes under the Mystery Science Theater music album, strangely called Clowns in the Sky. Don't ask why, but you can find that on iTunes, and it's a really funny song. Highly suggest it. So yeah, Mystery Science Theater. It's a very, you know, low budget show, as we've talked about. You can see strings, you can see sticks, you can see puppets all around. All the cast members play like 6 different jobs. The one thing is that a lot of people ask about, you know, the actual theater in the show. That is probably the most simple set in the entire show, because basically anyone can do this. You take a piece of wood, you cut out what looks like movie theater seats to make it look like movie theater seats. Then you take basically silhouettes of the 2 robots, plop them down next to you, you sit in the middle, and there you go. Because that's essentially what they did. They took silhouette versions of the 2 robots, made them talk a little bit, and then whoever was the main star at the time, whether it be Joel or Mike, would sit there and watch the movie, which is really kind of fun. And you know, the thing about the show is, of course, those movies, and some of the movies they showed were really weird.
Well,
yes,
you know
Dylan.
about the budget. I think,
Yes.
I mean, I know it's a low budget, but I also think that's kind of an homage to all those low budget Z movies.
You're right.
Where you could see the strings.
You're absolutely
where
right.
they were just
Yeah.
puppets, where it was a cheap mask or costume. So I think it's also the riffing on that.
You're
so.
absolutely right. And you know, that's the thing. Some of those movies we actually would be sequels that we've actually talked about before, especially with our club of Universal Studios monsters. They watched a couple of the really off Frankenstein films and Black Lagoon, even some big time monsters like Godzilla and King Kong got in there.
Any Roger Corman movie. pretty
Roger
much.
Corman, yeah, a lot of those. And then, you know, even some weird films, like I remember one, of course I would remember one like this. They showed a Bond film. Now it was, oh, you know about this?
No.
Oh, okay. It was not an official Bond film, but it was called Operation 007, and it starred Neil Connery, Sean Connery's brother. And
What, was one of those parodies or something?
well, it wasn't a parody per se. It was more like a continuation of James Bond before I got my hands on.
So one of your movies.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Except I would be giving a little bit more justice to Bond than this film did. However, they were able to get Bernard Lee and Lois Maxwell and Moneypenny, so go figure. And I think even Largo from Thunderball, I think, is in this. So go figure. But those are just some of the funny films they would show, and I think we do have a clip here that will work on air. You know, like I said, they do a few jokes that aren't radio appropriate, we'll say. But
So what?
I don't want to.
So what?
I don't want to get in trouble. But like, here's an example of them watching the opening credits to a film called Hobgoblins.
Oh my god, I know this film. I know this film.
The end credits. Well, it's a terrible movie. At least it was short.
These are the beginning credits.
Oh well, kill me, please.
I know this movie. This is
the king of
considered one of the worst movies of all time.
It's a movie. Paige Sullivan.
Stephen bogs this whole movie down.
That's good. Ah, the cheap sequel to Billy Jack. Frank.
Is she related to Wacky T. Backy? And I'm leaving.
No,
I just.
bro, come on now, come back now. Just don't try so hard. Come on. Here.
Carrie French. I bet she loves that dressing. Sorry, I hate myself. Goodbye.
No, bro, get up here.
Jake Mayberry RFD. Oh, I hate myself too.
Come on, get back in here. Come on. Hey, Servo, no.
No.
I can't, Mike. I'm out of here.
Sit back. Sit. Oh, Crow.
No, I can't take it.
Sit down. Sit down. Come, get back in here. Sit down. Come on. No, don't. Come back here. No, we're gonna sit down. We're gonna calm down. We're gonna watch this movie.
So you can clearly see the fun they have during these things. And
What are the names of the bots?
the bots, the one with the bowling pin and the field hockey head is called Crow T Robot. Crow T Robot. These names I don't understand it. And then the gumball one is named Tom Servo. There are actually two more robots that you don't see all the time. There's basically just a giant vacuum cleaner, and her name is Gypsy. And then basically, the entire show is filmed by a robot, essentially, in quotes, named Cambot. But you can clearly see the fun they have during that thing, and Hobgoblins is actually one of my favorite episodes of the show. And Dylan, I cut you off there, but you said you knew this movie?
Yeah, I do know this movie.
How do you know this movie?
Hobgoblins? Well, it's also considered one of the worst movies of all time.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, I've just heard of it in passing.
Fair
I don't
enough.
want to see it, but
Well, you may want to see this version of it.
yeah, I know. But well, yeah, no, I've heard of this. I won't be surprised if they've done Plan 9 from Outer Space, Troll 2, Troll 1. I won't be surprised.
Well, yeah. I mean, they've done quite a few of them. The one thing is that I think it's time for another rendition of the theme song, which is from the later seasons. They completely got rid of the two bosses there, in which I'll actually refer to them now. Their names are Dr. Forrester and TV's Frank. Again, these names are totally ridiculous here. And so this was one of the later theme songs that incorporates Dr. Forrester's mother. So take a listen to this. If it'll play, we don't know.
In the not too distant future, somewhere in time and space, Mike Nelson and his robot pals are caught in an endless chase, pursued by a woman whose name is Pearl, an evil gal who wants to rule the world. She threw a few things in her purse, and in her rocket ship she hunts him all across the universe.
So you've heard a couple versions of this theme song by now. Ben, we'll go to you. What are your thoughts? I mean, you hear the difference in between the versions here. Do you have a favorite, or do you have an opinion about the song itself, or what are your thoughts here?
Well, clearly they're all the same.
Well, yeah,
They're just changing up the lyrics a little
changing
bit.
up the lyrics.
But you said this started in the late 80s.
Late 80s.
So you can each one you can still hear that 80s feel.
Yeah, and you're a bit of a music expert yourself. You may.
I don't know if I'm a music expert,
Oh, yeah.
but I'm pretty knowledgeable about music.
Yeah.
And, you can definitely tell that this is 80s.
80s, yeah.
And I actually like that how they like keep referencing like the original season 0, as you called it, the show.
Yeah.
That same 80s feel with
Yep.
their theme song.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dylan, how about you?
Yeah, like Ben said, you can definitely hear the 80s. It's almost like disco or like dance-ish.
It's very danceable and very singable.
I shouldn't
I'll
say
give that.
disco, that's 70s, but like it's definitely like an 80s dance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just a silly song.
Yeah,
But I like it. It might get a little repetitive. but
yeah.
It's just catchy. One of those
Oh,
songs
yeah.
that,
Yeah,
like,
it's like the Big Bang Theory song.
Yeah.
When you hear it, you know it.
Exactly. Maybe that's why it's tied, with these seasons with Big Bang Theory. They have a similar sound to them. I think we have a quick clip of. We've been hearing a lot of Mike recently. We'll give you a little soundbite of one of the introductions that you would see Joel in, and you can just hear the difference in between him and like imagine him in a theater, and then you heard Mike in the theater. You can do a little comparison after we hear him. So let's do a quick listen to Joel and see how he sounds.
Oh, now, what is this? Oh, this is my second grade piano recital. Hey, Gypsy, wake up, check this out. Oh, you actually get a feeling for what it was like to really be there.
Oh yeah, this is really.
Oh, Joel, these are fascinating. Now, who took these? Uncle Roy.
Oh yeah, the guy with the mole.
Right, exactly. Gypsy, come check this out.
So cute.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Satellite of Love. Well, you can probably tell by now that Joel just transferred all his old home movies to videotape.
You know what? I think this is that picnic we took up to Koshkanon Mound.
Koshkanon Mounds? I'm kind of worried about Tom Servo.
Oh, watch what I do now, Gypsy. Check this out.
You pulled his shorts down. Now that's funny.
Yeah.
Hey, are this Minnie's kids there?
No, that's Brent and Brenda. They're Brian and Bridget's kids. Minnie's kids are...
Oh, Ray and Tony.
Right, and Teresa.
Oh, yeah. This is fascinating.
Tommy, don't go in too far.
Hey, look what I found. Swing choir.
Swing choir.
The world is black. The world is white.
So you can you can hear the difference there between Joel and Mike. Joel's kind of a more laid back sound to it, but I'll throw it over to the two guys here. Dylan, we'll start with you.
I prefer Mike.
You prefer
But,
Mike?
I mean, it's a different style of humor. Joel's more as you said, laid back. But with Mike, it's just more like fast, like rapid fire comedy, like joke. It's a very like set up. to
Here's a
the
joke, and then we're gonna wait, and then here's another joke.
Yeah.
And
I
Ben.
prefer the rapid fire comedy.
Yeah, Ben.
No, I'm totally in agreement with Dylan here. Mike just sounds a lot better, especially since you can't actually like see his face, but like the voice sounds a lot better than
Right.
Joel. I would agree with, and also I agree with Dylan. The rapid fire comedy is just a lot more entertaining. to me.
Right.
They might not all be funny jokes, but you just go on to the next one.
Exactly. The one thing about this show is that think about it for a second here. You have a show that is essentially about movies. The episodes are feature films, so an episode can be like 2 hours long. But oddly enough, and this is probably their, I'd probably say jump the shark moments. Right smack dab when Mike was starting off here, they said, "Hey, we have such a hit show on our hands. What would happen if we brought it over to the big screen?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and if they were asking me, I'd be like, "Oh, guys, that's a bad idea." But I wasn't around then, so we got this instead. Take a listen to this.
Every year, Hollywood makes hundreds of movies. This is one of them. Gramercy Pictures invites you to the first big screen adventure of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
You hit something. You killed the howl.
At last, the crew aboard the Satellite of Love can tell jokes without a censor.
Oh, did you hear that, Dylan? Look, they can tell jokes without a censor now.
Yeah, but can you play them without the censor?
No, I can't. But yeah, they actually released Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie. Now, if you ask me, I think that is one of the silliest and stupidest things out there, because when you already have a show and your episodes are movies, why would you release a big budget film? You can find this film around if you look hard enough. It does exist, and the production value kind of went up a few notches. You can clearly see the dedication they put in, but the one thing about it is that they do keep the sense of cheesiness, and you still see strings and stuff like that. There's a little bit more like CGI, especially with the space station and stuff like that. But all in all, they do still have that nostalgia feel to it as you see on TV. And so I'll let the trailer explain some more to it, and you can now, and then you might even know the movie they watched. So take a listen to the rest of the trailer here, and actually we'll listen to the rest of the trailer, and then we'll come back and talk about our thoughts on it.
Watch the gang from Mystery Science Theater as they watch the science fiction classic, This Island, Earth.
Captain's log. I've lost my toupee and girdle and I can't leave my room.
The supreme excitement of our time.
Yes, there it is. Yes.
See sights never before dreamed by man.
Why'd they put the toilet in the middle of the room?
Where captive Earth people fight for their lives.
Oh, I'm very vulnerable there. Oh, there go the piano lessons.
2.5 years in the making.
Oh no, Tinkerbell's going down. Pull up, Tinker! Oh, no!
Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie.
Hey, Baywatch is on.
All right, let's get out of here, you guys.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over
I
for
think this is actually pretty good.
75
Going pretty
years,
well. Yeah,
you
no,
might be
I don't have a problem with this.
Smokey Bear.
Wish I knew more a little bit more about it.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to
That's
switch
fine.
things up, because there's a lot
Learning
more
a
to
lot.
say, and I should know, because
Yeah,
my
see?
grandfather was a
I mean, like,
firefighter.
the
And one of the
movie
things
reviews
he
I
taught
watch are like
me
nostalgic
is that the
for
people that
Cinema
love
Snob,
the outdoors
Sean
the
Moore.
most are often the ones
And Eugenio
accidentally
Gaynor does
starting
movies
wildfires,
occasionally.
which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire.
I run a movie review website.
And be
Chris.
extra careful
Oh,
with
yeah.
things like burning yard trimming. Don't just
He
walk
reviews
away,
more obscure
or
movies,
chances
I review
are
more mainstream
you
movies.
might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com
Yep,
to learn more about wildfire prevention.
tomorrow.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
All right, a little bit of Thanksgiving, little bit of Thanksgiving soundtrack there. The
Sounded
thanks.
all like Christmas.
No, it's the Thanksgiving theme.
Thanksgiving.
The Thanksgiving theme from a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. It's November, so we got
I know.
we got to have some fun there. Welcome back to As the Real Turns. Today we're talking all things about the favorite of mine, one of the favorites of mine, the commentary show called Mystery Science Theater 3000. And on our way to the public service announcement, we heard the rest of the trailer to the Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie. I've said that I find it strange that they made a movie despite the episodes being movies themselves, but Ben, we'll throw it over to you first. Despite making a big budget film that in itself really didn't do so well, was this a good idea for the franchise or not?
I don't know. You see it a lot with TV shows trying to convert over to movies, and a lot of times it's just not very successful. In the rare instance, like Star Trek, where it is successful.
Nice reference.
That was for you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. In the rare reference,
Instance.
Instance.
Thank you. That it is successful, it doesn't last long.
Right.
Or it doesn't last long. And as you said with Mystery Science Theater 3000, it didn't end up doing well, and that often happens. Like the MASH movie,
Yeah.
it wasn't a very good movie.
Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, the TV show was extremely successful, and, I mean, it didn't seem affected by this, but they
No.
probably just should have stuck to their formula.
Yeah.
Just TV show, done.
Yeah, I completely agree. But again, it didn't seem to affect it because they still had a whole bunch of seasons to do after the movie.
They could have just made it like a TV movie.
A TV movie would have worked, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they obviously were doing something right because, you know, they would not have lasted the other seasons if they weren't. Which brings us to our last theme song officially of the show. So again, get your earworms ready for this version of the theme song. Here we go.
Not too distant future, somewhere in time and space. Mike Nelson and his robot pals are caught in a nasty place. They try to survive the wrath of Pearl, just an evil gal who wants to rule the world. From her castle below, she sets her sights above, just to torture all her captives on the satellite of love.
Okay, so a little bit of a change there, not too much, but yeah, there's now she has a castle apparently. Why not?
She's evil.
She's evil. She has to have a castle. Also, by this point, we're at like seasons 8 through 10 now, and there were a few changes going on. The set first had changed. They'd gotten a little bit darker, not in mood wise, but just in looks wise. There are some lighting fixtures that changed. And they actually make joke of this. The actor who was originally puppeteering for Crow left the show, and so they hired one of their extra people around the set to do that. And yeah, there's a little bit of a voice change between the two, but they actually make joke to it because there are points where they say, "Hey Crow, did you change your bowling pin or something like that? You sound a little different." Like, oh really? That's so weird. I don't even. Wow, that's so weird. You don't think there's any difference in the theme song here, do you?
I didn't hear any.
You didn't really hear much of a difference.
Musically.
Yeah.
Lyrically, yeah.
It's still Mike.
It's still Mike.
the
It's
same
still
show.
Mike. But this was like the final nail in the coffin.
Well, it's like, but it's like
Yeah.
any other TV show. The opening intro will change.
It will
The
change.
song might not, but so it's just another TV show song.
This was the final season for the show. This was 1999. They've been on Sci-Fi Channel for 5 years now, and they had a big finale. And then, as you can probably guess, they got back down to Earth. The satellite love crashes down to Earth, and the final scene of the show is basically Mike and the two bots in his apartment, I think, and they're watching the very first movie that was shown on the show. That back with Joel. So it's kind of a nice. Sorry if I spoiled it for you guys, but
That's fine.
but I mean, come on, this is.
It's a show where you watch the movie and listen to the jokes, not where you pay attention really to the plot.
And this is
It's not about the plot.
This is like Star Trek Voyager. I mean, where like Voyager's gonna get home. They're gonna get back to Earth at some point. You know it's coming.
Yeah.
You just have to enjoy the ride as you go through the show. So, and that was pretty much the end.
How many episodes were in each season?
I don't know.
60?
I don't know. Actually, that's
10?
a good question. We don't, as some people can probably guess, we don't have a lot of our regular people here today, and so we don't have a lot of our fact checkers here today.
Casey, where are you?
Yeah, Casey. I mean, I don't know what he's up to. I don't know what he's plotting against me, but
Where is Casey?
Probably busy.
I don't know what he's up to. But we're gonna. But to answer your question, Dylan, they mostly ranged from anywhere to 13 to about 24 episodes per season.
Okay.
Not bad.
That's not bad at all, I
Yes.
think.
For like
Episodes.
movies, like what, 2 hours?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I mean, say what you want about the show, but this really does show kind of an impact they're trying
And
to
it's
get
not
there.
like it was a negatively received show.
No,
It was
no.
still popular to
No.
this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the reason for why they had so much stuff is 'cause they didn't need to pay attention to stuff like the plot. Like there needed to be like writing.
Right.
I mean, this obviously still had to like write jokes and like a small script between the movies. But
Right.
It was, they had a lot of flexibility with what they could do in terms of like lengthwise. Just
Right.
Because there was not a lot of things they needed to focus on.
And it's so low budget, it's not like
Yeah.
Exactly.
they cut off the funding.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought this was the end of Mystery Science Theater 3000. We didn't get any more riffing movies or anything like that. We didn't get any more of jokes or B movies or even C movies at this point. However, a lot of the cast members from the show then found something called the interweb. The interweb. And so they started doing their own kind of versions of Mystery Science Theater, sort of like it, but not in the same way at all. They ditched the robots, they ditched the theater setting and everything like that, and the whole story around the show, and they just basically commented on movies, like you would see on a normal commentary of a film. And so a few of the big ones were like the film crew that Mike and a couple other cast members did for a while, and then Cinematic Titanic that Joel had some crew members join him for. But probably the most famous one out there, and one that you can definitely still see to this day, is this one right here.
And it's not an easy job. They watch movies and then make jokes about them. Tell their jokes to microphones. Put the jokes into a file on a secret server deep beneath the mountain. Protected by a dragon. Those tracks. Tracks where the real song is in. Why you always got big flip tracks? Big song tracks for everything. On some other day, somewhere far away.
Yes, riff tracks is probably one of the most popular things to come from Mystery Science Theater. This is with Mike and a couple other members of the show, basically the guys who did the two robots.
It's the spiritual successor to MST.
It really is. It really is. I mean, what you just heard is the intro song there that, you know, you don't hear all the time when you watch a riff tracks thing, but it's their theme song.
They kept the cheesiness.
They kept the cheesiness.
Protected by a dragon.
Protected by a dragon.
In a mount, yeah, no.
The one thing that you can see while watching the intro, which is for me one of my favorites, is that if you watch it, there's a part where you're on Earth for a little bit, you're seeing the guys do their thing, and then you look up into the sky, and there it is. There's the Satellite of Love from Mystery Science Theater. So a little bit of a cameo from MST3K.
Well, it is MST3K.
It is, and they've done some really Now that they're not on TV, they can definitely push the envelope even more. They're not on a television channel. They're not on movie screens. They're just on the internet. And as unfortunate as it is to say sometimes, you can say anything on the internet.
My show.
Your show.
Yeah.
Your show.
Yeah.
So again, we can't really play a lot of the clips that they do because they do push that envelope a little bit more. But I was able to at least find two things that are definitely radio fine, and they're from definite movies that I think that can fit in the Mystery Science world. This one being first from that fourth film in this franchise here, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Take a listen to the scene at the beginning of the film where Indy is escaping the Russians.
I like this movie.
I do too up until the ending, but take a listen to how they describe Indy's appearance.
Here we go now, really slow, nearly limping, because he's old.
I mean, is it not true?
No,
It's
very
true. It's so true.
I'm just saying I like this movie.
So yeah, you can clearly see they have some fun with some current day movies here, but they also jump into the past. And one of the films that I certainly think deserves to be on a Mystery Science Theater episode is Star Trek V, Shatner Ruins the Franchise. So take a listen to this quick joke here from Star Trek V.
A bear. Oh no, it's the Guru.
I got your trash.
But we didn't bring a copy of the script with us. Come on, you gotta give me that.
I don't have to, but I guess I will.
Well, that's not a bad effect for 1977.
Except I think this was 1989.
So you can clearly see the fun they have with this still, and actually the funny thing about Star Trek V is that I think we can all agree that it really kind of deserves to be in Mystery Science world.
I mean, I feel like MST3K and riff tracks are for bad movies. I mean, yeah, you can get jokes out of good movies, but like, I'd rather...
Ben is dying. Ben is dying to hear from that joke. I mean, like... You got over that?
Oh, just we came to take your trash, but we didn't bring a copy.
You got me in the
Oh, God. That's so weird.
Well, you know, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
As I was saying,
You were saying.
who wants to riff on a movie like Pulp Fiction? Why don't you riff on a movie like The Room, Star Trek V, or Star Trek: The Motion Picture?
Star Trek: The Motion
Make
Picture.
it less boring.
Definitely so. The one thing about Star Trek V that's unique about it, though, is that, and this just shows the legacy and impact of Mystery Science Theater. You have a fan out there who made his own episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. He made himself look like Joel, got Joel's jumpsuit, made himself the two robots. He made them himself, created the set and everything, and created the theater, and they watched Star Trek V. They watched the entire film.
Wow.
And they made it look like just like an episode.
That's dedication.
And this is even more low budget than, you know, the actual show.
This is no budget.
This is no budget. And I think the only part he borrowed from the show was the door sequence, which is totally fine. But oh my gosh, is it funny. And personally, the thing I remember it most from it was the beginning scene where you all know where Kirk is climbing El Capitan. He's climbing the rocks.
Oh, yeah.
And he's climbing along, and then you hear the robots and quote-unquote Joel here start to sing this. Rocks, 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 rocks. We love to climb the rocks. We climb and climb and climb and climb, and here comes Mr. Spock, 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 Spock. And you know, by that point, Spock is coming up in his rocket boots.
I want those.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I have the copy of it at my house, so if I can bring it here, you know, maybe we can watch it. But it's really it is real dedication. You are absolutely right. But you know, I think we've ranted enough about this show, and I really think that somebody else should rant about it. So I think it's time that we that we gave the ranting to a professional, that being our friend Christy. I think it's time for yet another edition of Christy Rants. Of course, it would help if I had the audio. We've been having some audio issues today. That's strange, isn't it? Let's see if we can get that rant up and running. Christy, would you mind giving us a little bit of a rant, please?
The ranting is in the show. Just watch it.
Okay, that's all he has to say for today, apparently. That was a that was his shortest rant ever. That's all he sent me this week. That's an honest Christy rant right there. So there you go. There's your Christy rant of the day. We have just one more thing to talk about when it comes to this show. We talked about the impact that it has, and sometimes an impact can lead to something that I call a reboot.
I also want to say,
Yes.
like, some of the legacy is, I mean, you still see it with, like, YouTubers and, like,
Yep.
say, Nostalgia Critics, Cinema Snob,
Yep.
Sean Moore. Like, I know they might not, there's definitely some inspiration there. There's
Oh,
gotta be
certainly.
people
Yeah.
riffing on Movie Doctor, he'll riff on shows.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
movies.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
it will last, it will last forever. I think this is, like, one of the first shows to actually do that.
I think it
Yeah.
is. I really do.
Yeah.
But obviously they were doing something right, because we got a rebooted version of this, and this is seasons 11 and 12, or yeah, I guess you can call it that. And this directly went to no channel. It went to Netflix. So here's a sneak peek, or here's a sound at the theme song for the Netflix MST3K.
Hello? Hello? What the heck?
Cheese
So what you actually heard there was the theme song, and the female voice in that was Felicia Day. She's been in a whole bunch of stuff, and she played basically Forrester's daughter, sort of, in this show.
Who's the star now?
A guy named Jonah. I don't necessarily know him.
Joel, Mike, Jonah.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we also had, I mentioned TV's Frank before. We had the son of TV's Frank, played by Patton Oswalt. Going to Netflix, was that a bold move? Quickly, Ben.
Well, not necessarily a bold move. I think it was a smart move.
Smart move.
So many shows have switched over to streaming services. So if they wanted to do a reboot, that was certainly the place to do it, because there's people watch anything on Netflix.
And Dylan, quickly.
I think that was a good move. As Ben said, streaming service, and people will watch it. Is this still going on?
I believe it has ended now, but who
Just
knows?
a brief comeback.
Who knows? We may get a comeback once again.
Well, I mean, I'll just make this quick, but like RiffTrax is the spiritual successor to MST3K, but you know it's going to come back. Look, we just talked about all the legacy of the YouTube reviewers at RiffTrax, as I said, so it will come back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in a different way.
Well, we're just about out of time, so I think it's about time that we played our favorite game in the whole entire world. That means it's time for our favorite game, Who Are You? Alright guys, quick reminder of the rules. You have to guess who this is and what show they're from, or film, you never know. And then I give you points, but the points don't matter, of course. And I quickly want to mention some of my favorite MST3K films. Santa Claus, if you want to look that up, you certainly can. Hobgoblins was another one. And you can find a lot of these episodes up on YouTube. Full episodes, no commercials whatsoever. And you can enjoy them.
And I want to say Manos, the Hands of Fate.
Manos,
Watch that one.
Manos, the Hands of Fate.
That one's my favorite.
That's a big famous one. So here we go. Here is your clip of the day, gentlemen. Good luck.
You sent me out Thanksgiving to get things from the store. Every store is closed. I drove 20 miles. Finally found a place called the Lucky Stop Market. They had a line of people longer than something to see Batman.
All right, so Dylan, we'll go to you first. Who is that and what is it from?
Fraser. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
It's a guy.
Ben,
I'm right.
your thoughts?
Sounded like Bill Cosby.
And what do you think this is from?
Cosby Show.
Ben gets points today.
Yeah.
Ben, that.
Yeah, I got points too. I said it's a guy.
Okay, you get like 1,000 points for that. So yes,
Okay.
yeah, that was Bill Cosby, Cliff Huxtable from a Thanksgiving episode of The Cosby Show. One of my favorite Thanksgiving things to watch around this time of year. I want to thank you guys for coming on to the show today. It was a lot of fun. I think you guys are maybe interested now in this show. You're maybe going to go check it out. I promised you a Thanksgiving connection. Every year, either the channels they've been on or a streaming service called Shout Factory Online does a Turkey Day marathon of MST3K. So if you can find that, watch that and celebrate Thanksgiving with Mystery Science Theater. Next week, we're going to be doing something that, well, you know, I was oh, we're just doing this. You know what it is when you hear it.
You used the Clone Wars.
Well, despite whatever you think. Yes, next week we're going to be covering that. I want to thank Ben. I want to thank Dylan. My name is Daniel Soletti. This has been As the Real Turns. We are the Night Shift. We're going to kick it off with our night theme of Night Court. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much. No, keep going.
See you, Dan.
Thank you, Ben.
No problem. See you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Ooh, we got some viewers.
Got some viewers?
Yeah, cool. Who watched? I got 7 viewers. Jackson, Stephanie. Cool. My buddy Jake.
Hold on a second. And even though people want to comment on me whenever they hear me say it, this is WKNH. Keen. Alright, let's get out of here.